Elias Grant stepped inside his mansion that afternoon and instantly knew something was off. The air felt different, too still. His chest tightened. "Arya? Liana? Nori?" he called out. Nothing. His stomach dropped like a stone. 3 years of silence had taught him to expect nothing. But this felt wrong. Different wrong. He found Marcus, one of the guards, near the hallway. "Where are my kids?" His voice came out sharper than he intended. Marcus looked uncomfortable. "In the sunroom, sir, with the new maid." Elias didn't wait. He rushed across the polished floors, his footsteps echoing through the empty mansion. Every second stretched. His mind raced through worst-case scenarios. When he reached the doorway, he froze. His triplets, children who had never walked, never spoken a word since the day they were born, were sitting upright on a soft mat. And they weren't just sitting, they were trying to stand. One of them even laughed, a real laugh. Not a cry or a whimper. Laughter. For the first time in their lives, Elias watched his own children move like they'd been waiting years for this moment. His knees almost buckled. He gripped the doorframe. He didn't understand. He couldn't breathe. Nothing made sense. "Let me show you how we reach this moment. Because this story will shake you before it lifts you. But before we go on, subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from." It all began 3 years ago in the quiet streets of Greenwich, Connecticut, a town known for its sprawling estates and secretive billionaires. Old money, new money, silent money. Elias had been a man defined by work. Property deals in Manhattan, investments that made other people rich, a life carefully constructed to hide his grief. His wife, Celeste, had died during childbirth. Complications, they said, could happen, but rarely did. She bled out while the doctors worked to save the triplets. They saved the babies. They couldn't save her. Elias held her hand as the light left her eyes. She whispered something he couldn't hear over the machines. He leaned closer. "Don't give up on them," she said. Then she was gone. The triplets survived, but they didn't thrive. Arya, Liana, and Nori came into the world silent. No cries, no movement beyond breathing. Doctors ran tests. Neurologists flew in from Boston. Specialists from California examined them. The diagnosis was always vague. Developmental delays. Possible neurological damage. "Wait and see," they said. "Give it time." 3 years passed. Nothing changed. The silence in the house was deafening. Each room became a mausoleum of lost hope. Elias stopped seeing joy. He stopped hearing laughter. In the echo of the empty halls, he felt a piece of his soul vanish. Every day was the same. A breakfast untouched by smiles. A nursery where toys remained motionless. Video monitors filled with frozen faces. The girls barely blinked. They stared at ceilings, at walls, at nothing. Elias hired the best nannies money could buy. They came from agencies in New York, Los Angeles, even London. Each one lasted a few weeks before they quit. Too hard, they said. Too sad. One woman cried when she left. "I can't watch them fade away," she told him. Elias didn't blame her. He was watching them fade too. He threw himself into work. Deals in Manhattan kept him busy. A penthouse in San Francisco needed renovating. Property in Malibu required attention. He moved between cities like a ghost, never staying long enough to feel anything. But the world outside moved on. New York City buzzed with life. Beverly Hills glittered with parties. Silicon Valley thrived on innovation. And yet, in his estates, from Connecticut to the penthouses in Manhattan, Elias lived in a bubble of grief. He avoided the nursery. He couldn't look at their faces without seeing Celeste. He couldn't hold them without feeling the weight of failure. What kind of father can't help his own children? What kind of man watches his daughters exist but not live? Guilt ate at him. It burrowed into his chest and made a home there. He started drinking, not enough to lose control, but enough to numb the edges, enough to sleep without dreaming of Celeste. The staff noticed but said nothing. What could they say? The richest man in Greenwich was drowning in his own home. Then one morning, Mrs. Chen, the house manager, knocked on his office door. "Sir, we need to discuss the children." Elias didn't look up from his laptop. "What about them?" "They need more than we can give. The current nanny is leaving next week." He closed his eyes. Another one gone. "Fine. Hire someone new." "I already have someone in mind. She's different." "They're all different until they're not. This one has experience with special needs children. She's worked miracles before." Elias finally looked up. "I don't believe in miracles anymore, Mrs. Chen." "Maybe you should start again, sir." The interview happened 2 days later. Elias sat in his study, barely paying attention. He'd heard it all before: credentials, references, promises. They all sounded the same. Then Jasmine walked in. She was younger than he expected, mid-20s maybe. She carried herself with a quiet confidence that felt out of place. No nervousness, no eagerness to impress. She sat down and looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Grant, I'm not here to make you feel better." That caught his attention. "Excuse me?" "Most people in my position would tell you what you want to hear. That your daughters will be fine. That time heals everything. I'm not going to do that." "Then what are you going to do?" "I'm going to wake them up." Elias almost laughed. Almost. But something in her voice stopped him. "You think you can do what a dozen specialists couldn't?" "I think your daughters are waiting for someone to see them, really see them, not as broken things to fix, but as people who need a reason to try." "And you're that reason?" "No, Mr. Grant, you are. But first you have to stop running." Jasmine walked into the nursery that first morning and immediately felt the weight of the room pressing down on her. 3 small bodies lay in custom cribs, staring at nothing. The air was stale despite the open window. Toys lined the shelves, untouched, still in their packaging. It looked like a showroom for grief. She turned to Mrs. Chen, who stood in the doorway. "How long has it been like this?" Mrs. Chen's voice dropped. 3 years, since the day they came home from the hospital." Jasmine walked closer to the cribs. Aria's eyes didn't follow her. Liana's fingers didn't twitch. Nori's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. But Jasmine saw something the others had missed. She saw children who were listening, waiting, trapped behind a wall no one else could see. "Leave us," she said softly. Mrs. Chen hesitated. "Mr. Grant doesn't like anyone being alone with them for too long. Then Mr. Grant can come watch. But right now, these girls need space to breathe." Mrs. Chen left without another word. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments if you believe children can sense when someone truly sees them. Jasmine didn't rush. She sat on the floor between the cribs and did nothing. Just sat. The silence stretched for 10 minutes. Then 20. Most people would have panicked, would have tried to fill the space with noise or movement. But Jasmine understood something crucial. These children had been surrounded by panic their entire lives. Doctors prodding them, nurses checking vitals, nannies trying too hard, everyone wanting them to be something they weren't ready to be. So she sat, and she breathed, and she let the room settle. After 30 minutes, she pulled out a small keyboard from her bag. Nothing fancy. Just a cheap plastic thing she'd bought at a thrift store in Brooklyn before moving to Connecticut. She placed it on her lap and pressed a single key. One note. Soft. Then another. No melody yet. Just sound. She watched Arya's face. Nothing. She pressed another key. Liana's eyelid flickered, barely noticeable. But there. Jasmine's heart jumped, but she kept her expression calm. She played another note, then another, building a simple pattern. Do, re, mi. Over and over. Nori's head turned, just a fraction of an inch. But it turned. Jasmine wanted to scream with excitement. Instead, she kept playing. She added her voice, humming. No words, just melody. The kind of sound that reaches past the brain and touches something deeper. She hummed for an hour. Her throat got dry. Her fingers cramped. But she didn't stop, because Arya's eyes were tracking the movement of her hands now. Because Liana's breathing had changed rhythm to match the music. Because Nori's fingers were twitching in time with the notes. When Elias appeared in the doorway, Jasmine didn't acknowledge him. She kept humming, kept playing. He stood there watching, his expression unreadable. She could feel his presence like a storm cloud, heavy, dark, suffocating. And the moment he stepped into the room, all three girls went still again. The progress vanished. Arya's eyes glazed over. Liana's breathing flattened. Nori's fingers stopped moving. Jasmine finally looked at him. You need to leave. His jaw tightened. This is my house. And these are your daughters. But right now, you're the reason they can't move forward. Excuse me? His voice went cold, dangerous. You heard me. Every time you come near them, you bring your grief with you. They feel it. It smothers them. Elias took a step forward. You've been here one day, and you think you understand my children? I understand that they're not the only ones who stopped living 3 years ago. The words hit him like a physical blow. His face went pale. You don't know anything about what I've been through. You're right, I don't. But I know what they've been through. 3 years of being treated like ghosts. 3 years of everyone around them giving up. 3 years of their own father being too afraid to look at them. I'm not afraid. Then prove it. Leave this room. Let me work. And when they're ready, when they've remembered how to be alive, you can come back. But until then, your grief is a cage they can't escape. Elias stood there, shaking. Jasmine thought he might fire her on the spot. Part of her didn't care. These children deserved better than being museum pieces in their own home. Finally, he turned and walked out. The door closed behind him. The room exhaled. And slowly, impossibly, Arya's eyes began to track movement again. Liana's fingers twitched. Nori's head turned toward the keyboard. Jasmine picked up where she left off, humming, playing, but this time she added words, simple ones. You're here. You're safe. You're loved. She repeated them like a prayer, like a promise. An hour passed, then 2. Mrs. Chen brought lunch on a tray, but Jasmine barely touched it. She was watching Arya's toes. They were flexing, barely, like someone learning to use a limb they'd forgotten they had. Come on, sweet girl, Jasmine whispered. I know you're in there. By late afternoon, something shifted. Nori made a sound. Not a cry, not a whimper. A coo, soft and uncertain, but deliberate. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them away and kept playing, kept singing, because if she stopped now, the spell might break. Liana's hand moved, not a twitch, a movement. reaching toward the sound. Her fingers stretched out into empty air, searching. And Aria, sweet, silent Aria. She turned her whole head to look directly at Jasmine. Their eyes met, and for the first time in 3 years, someone was home behind those eyes. Jasmine set down the keyboard and moved closer to the cribs. She lowered the rail on Aria's crib and gently, carefully picked her up. The little girl was light as air, fragile but warm, alive. Jasmine held her close and kept humming. Aria's head rested against her shoulder, and then, so quiet Jasmine almost missed it, Aria sighed, a sound of contentment, of relief, like she'd been holding her breath for years and finally remembered how to let go. Outside the nursery door, Elias stood with his back against the wall. He'd heard everything, every word, every note, every accusation. And he knew Jasmine was right. He was the cage. The morning Jasmine carried all 3 girls outside changed everything. Elias watched from his office window as she laid a thick blanket on the grass in the corner of the garden, where sunlight filtered between tall hedges and the world felt softer somehow. She placed the triplets down gently, one by one, and for a moment nothing happened. Then Aria's fingers touched the grass, just touched it, and her whole body shivered like she'd been shocked. Elias dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. He was already moving toward the door when Liana's hand joined her sister's, both of them now pressing their palms flat against the earth like they were feeling it for the first time. Because they were. These children had spent 3 years on sterile sheets and soft carpets. They'd never felt the wild texture of grass, never felt the sun directly on their skin. Jasmine knew exactly what she was doing, and Elias realized with a jolt of shame that he'd kept them imprisoned without even knowing it. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments what simple thing you take for granted that someone else might be experiencing for the first time. Jasmine sat cross-legged on the blanket and pulled out the small keyboard again. She started playing the same pattern from yesterday. Do, re, mi. The girls recognized it. Nori's head lifted slightly. She was tracking the sound. Jasmine changed the pattern, added new notes, made it more complex, and the girls followed. Their eyes were sharper today, more present, like fog was lifting after a long storm. Good morning, beautiful souls, Jasmine said softly. Today we're going to try something new. She played a chord and held it. Then she reached over and gently took Aria's hand. She guided it to the keys, pressed one finger down. The note rang out. Aria's eyes went wide. Jasmine did it again. Another note. Aria's mouth opened slightly, not speaking, but responding. Elias reached the garden edge but stopped himself before entering. Jasmine's words from yesterday still burned in his mind. You're the cage? So he stayed back, hidden behind the hedge, watching through the gaps. It killed him to be this close and this far away at the same time. Jasmine moved to Liana next. Same process. Hand on the keys, press down, sound. Liana's reaction was different. She didn't look surprised. She looked curious. She pressed the key again on her own, then another. Random notes, no pattern, but deliberate, intentional. Jasmine laughed, a bright, genuine sound. There you go. You're making music. Nori watched her sisters. Then she did something that made Jasmine's breath catch. She reached for the keyboard, not to play it, to touch Jasmine's hand. The little girl's fingers wrapped around Jasmine's thumb and squeezed. It was the first purposeful touch she'd ever initiated. The first time she'd reached for human connection instead of withdrawing from it. Jasmine's voice shook when she spoke. I see you, Nori. I see all of you. Behind the hedge, Elias pressed his hand over his mouth to keep from making a sound. Tears streamed down his face. 3 years. 3 years of specialists and therapists and treatments. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent. And this woman with a cheap keyboard and a blanket had reached his daughters in 3 days. What did that say about him? What did that say about everything he'd tried to do? The guilt was crushing, but underneath it, something else bloomed, something he'd buried with Celeste. Hope. Jasmine started singing, not a lullaby, not a children's song, just simple words set to melody. The sun is warm, the grass is soft, you're here with me, you're safe and loved. She repeated it, over and over. And on the third repetition, Nori's mouth moved. No sound came out, but her lips were forming the shapes, trying, attempting to mirror what she heard. Jasmine saw it and her heart nearly burst. Yes, yes, sweet girl, just like that. She sang it again slower. Nori's mouth moved again, still silent, but the effort was there. The desire to communicate, to connect, to speak. Aria wasn't watching the keyboard anymore. She was watching Jasmine's face, studying it, learning how expressions worked, how emotions showed themselves. Jasmine smiled at her. Aria's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but an attempt at one. Liana had pulled her hand back from the keyboard and was now touching her own face, exploring, like she'd just discovered she had features. She touched her nose, her cheeks, her mouth. Then she reached out and touched Jasmine's face, mirroring, learning, becoming. You're not broken, Jasmine whispered to them. You never were. You were just waiting for someone to show you it's safe to be here, to be alive, to be seen. She picked up Aria and held her close, then gestured for Mrs. Chen, who was watching from a distance, to bring Liana. Between the two of them, they held all 3 girls on the blanket, skin to skin, heart to heart. The human contact that therapy books talked about, but that these children had been denied because everyone was too afraid to try, too afraid to fail. Elias wanted to run to them, wanted to hold his daughters, wanted to be part of this moment. But he knew if he approached now, they'd shut down again. He was the reminder of grief, the symbol of loss. He needed to change that. But he didn't know how. Jasmine looked up suddenly, her eyes scanning the garden. For a moment, Elias thought she'd seen him, but she was looking past him, at the sky. Look, she said to the girls, tilting their faces upward. Birds. 3 sets of eyes followed where she pointed, and Aria made a sound, a gasp, soft and sharp, the sound of wonder. Jasmine laughed and cried at the same time. You see them? You see how they fly? She stood, still holding Aria, and began to sway, dancing slowly, moving to music only she could hear. Aria's body relaxed into the movement. She wasn't fighting it. She was allowing it, trusting it. Mrs. Chen followed Jasmine's lead, swaying with Liana. The little girl's head lolled at first, unsupported. Then slowly, her neck muscles engaged. She was holding her own head up, something she'd never done before. Nori remained on the blanket, watching. But her eyes were tracking everything, recording, processing. Jasmine set Aria back down and knelt beside Nori. Your turn, brave one. She helped Nori sit up straighter. The little girl wobbled. Her core had no strength, but Jasmine supported her gently. Feel that? That's you. That's your body. You're in control of it. Nori's eyes locked onto Jasmine's, and for just a second, Jasmine swore she saw understanding there. True, deep understanding. These children weren't developmentally delayed. They were traumatized. There was a difference, and Jasmine was pulling them back from the edge one moment at a time. Elias turned away from the hedge. He couldn't watch anymore. Not because it hurt, but because he needed to figure out how to become the father they deserved. The father Celeste believed he could be. 5 days after Jasmine arrived, Arya laughed. Not a giggle. Not a small sound. A full, real laugh that rang through the sunroom and made everyone in the house stop what they were doing. Elias was in a video call with investors in California when he heard it. He didn't apologize, didn't explain. He just ended the call and ran. By the time he reached the sunroom, Jasmine had Arya on her lap, bouncing her gently, and the little girl was laughing again. Her face was bright, alive, transformed. Lyanna watched from the mat, and then her mouth opened too. A smile. An actual smile. Nori clapped her hands together once. Twice. The sound was soft but deliberate. Elias stood in the doorway, his whole body shaking. He'd forgotten what joy looked like. He'd forgotten his children could feel it. And now here it was, blooming right in front of him, like spring after an endless winter. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments about a moment that changed everything for you. Jasmine looked up and saw him. This time she didn't tell him to leave. She just nodded toward the mat. An invitation. Elias hesitated. His feet wouldn't move. What if he ruined it? What if his presence killed the light in their eyes again? "They're your daughters, Mr. Grant," Jasmine said quietly. "They need to know you're not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them. Then stop acting like they'll break if you get too close." He took a step forward, then another. Arya watched him. Her smile faded slightly, but didn't disappear. Progress. He lowered himself onto the mat slowly, like he was approaching wild animals. Jasmine shifted Arya toward him. "Hold her." His hands shook as he reached out. When his fingers touched Arya's small body, he almost pulled back. But Jasmine guided his arms into position, and suddenly he was holding his daughter, really holding her. Not just carrying her from one place to another, holding her. Arya stared up at him. Her eyes were so much like Celeste's, it physically hurt. But for the first time, the pain didn't make him want to run. He looked at her. Really looked. "Hi, sweetheart," he whispered. His voice cracked. Arya blinked. Then her hand reached up and touched his face. Her tiny fingers traced his jaw, his cheek, his nose. She was exploring him the same way Lyanna had explored her own face days ago. Learning, remembering, recognizing. "That's right," Jasmine said softly. "That's your daddy." The word hit Elias like a punch. Daddy. Was he, though? Had he earned that title? 3 years of absence, 3 years of hiding, 3 years of choosing grief over presence. But Arya didn't know any of that. She just knew this man was warm. Safe. Here. Lyanna made a sound, a whine. She was reaching toward Elias, jealous, wanting attention too. Elias looked at Jasmine, panicked. "Can I?" "You're their father. You don't need permission." He shifted Arya to one arm and reached for Lyanna with the other. She came willingly, settling into the crook of his elbow like she'd been waiting for this her whole life. Maybe she had been. Nori watched from her spot on the mat. She didn't reach out, but she didn't look away either. Her eyes stayed fixed on Elias, studying him, deciding if he was trustworthy. "Hi, Nori," he said softly. She didn't respond, but her head tilted slightly, listening. Jasmine stood and moved to the keyboard. She started playing the pattern the girls knew. Do, re, mi. Arya's attention shifted to the music. Lyanna's body relaxed, and Nori's mouth opened. She made a sound. Soft, wordless, but a sound. Elias's eyes filled with tears. He looked at Jasmine. How are you doing this? I'm not doing anything they weren't already capable of. I'm just showing them it's safe to try. The doctors said, the doctors were wrong. They saw broken children. I see children who were never given a reason to reach for life. Arya squirmed in his arms. He thought she wanted down. But instead, she turned her body toward him and pressed her face against his chest. She was cuddling him, choosing comfort from him. His breath caught in his throat. When was the last time someone had chosen him? Needed him? Wanted him close? Lyanna mimicked her sister, turning toward him too. Both girls nestled against him like he was their safe place, like he'd always been their safe place. The guilt threatened to swallow him whole. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm so sorry I gave up. You're here now, Jasmine said. That's what matters. But was it enough? Could 5 days of trying erase 3 years of absence? Could presence now heal the damage his grief had caused? He didn't know. But looking down at his daughters, seeing them alive in a way they'd never been before, he knew he had to try. Nori made another sound, this one louder, more insistent. She was trying to form a word. Her mouth struggled with the shape. Her throat worked to push sound past lips that had never learned how to speak. Ma, she said, or tried to say. It came out broken, unclear, but intentional. Elias's heart stopped. Ma? Jasmine moved closer. Say it again, Nori, you're so close. Nori's face scrunched with effort. Ma. Ma. The word hung in the air, incomplete, but undeniable. Elias felt like the ground had opened beneath him. Mama. She was trying to say Mama, calling for the mother she'd never known, the mother who died bringing her into the world. Celeste, he breathed, saying her name out loud for the first time in months. Jasmine's expression softened. Tell her about their mother. What? They don't know her, but they feel the absence. Tell them who she was. Elias looked down at Arya and Lyanna in his arms, then at Nori on the mat. How could he explain Celeste to children who'd never met her? How could he make them understand the woman who loved them enough to die for them? Your mother, he started, his voice shaking, was the strongest person I ever knew. She fought for you, all 3 of you. She knew bringing you into this world might cost her everything. And she did it anyway. Nori's eyes stayed locked on his face. She had a laugh like music, and she believed in miracles. She believed in you. Arya's hand gripped his shirt. Lyanna's breathing slowed. They were listening, really listening. She made me promise not to give up on you. And I broke that promise. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. 2 weeks into Jasmine's arrival, Arya took her first step. It happened on a Thursday morning in the garden when no one was expecting it. Jasmine had the girls on the blanket as usual, playing music, letting the sun warm their skin. Arya was sitting upright without support now, something that had seemed impossible just days ago. Then she leaned forward, planted her hands on the grass, and pushed herself up onto her knees. Jasmine's heart stopped. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't want to break whatever was happening. Arya wobbled there on her knees for a moment, her face serious with concentration. Then she lifted one foot, placed it flat on the ground, and pushed. She stood, shaky, unsteady, but standing. For 3 full seconds, she balanced there, swaying like a tree in wind. Then she lifted her other foot and took a step, one single, impossible step before her legs gave out and she sat down hard on the blanket. But that step changed everything. Because if Arya could do it, the others could too. And Elias, watching from the sunroom window, felt his entire world tilt on its axis. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments about the first time you watched someone you love accomplish the impossible. Jasmine scrambled to Arya and pulled her into her arms. "You did it! You walked! Did you feel that?" Arya's face broke into a smile. She knew. She understood what she'd done, and she was proud. Lyanna watched her sister with wide eyes. Then she tried. She rolled onto her stomach, pushed up onto her hands and knees, and rocked back and forth. Her muscles were building strength, learning how to coordinate, how to trust her own body. She didn't stand. Not yet. But she crawled, 3 feet across the blanket toward Jasmine and Arya. Actually crawled. Her movements were clumsy and slow, but they were movements. Real, deliberate movements. Nori sat still, watching both her sisters. She didn't try to move, but her eyes tracked everything. Recording, processing, learning. Jasmine knew better than to push. Each child moved at their own pace. Nori would come when she was ready. Elias burst through the sunroom doors and ran across the lawn. He didn't care about keeping distance anymore. Didn't care if his presence disrupted the moment. His daughter had walked. His daughter, who doctors said might never have motor control, had just taken a step. Did she? He couldn't finish the sentence. His voice broke. Jasmine nodded, tears streaming down her face. She walked. Arya walked. Elias dropped to his knees on the blanket. He looked at Arya like he was seeing her for the first time. "Do it again," he whispered. "Can you do it again, sweetheart?" Arya looked at him, then at the grass. She leaned forward again, hands down, knees up, 1 foot planted. But this time when she pushed up, her legs shook too much. She couldn't balance. She fell back onto her bottom and made a frustrated sound. Not a cry, frustration. She wanted to do it again but couldn't. "It's okay," Elias said quickly. "You did it once. That's enough. That's everything." But Arya shook her head. She tried again, and again, each time falling before she could stand fully, each time getting more upset. Jasmine moved closer. "Arya, look at me." The little girl's eyes snapped to hers. "You took a step today. That's huge. Tomorrow you'll take 2. Next week you'll take 10. But today, 1 step is a miracle." Arya's face relaxed slightly. She looked at her father. Then she reached for him. Elias pulled her into his arms and held her so tight Jasmine worried it might hurt. But Arya just snuggled closer. Safe. Loved. Proud of herself. Lyanna crawled over to them and tugged on Elias's shirt. Wanting in. He pulled her close too. 3 years of distance collapsed in seconds. He was holding his daughters. They were choosing him, trusting him, needing him. Nori made a sound. Not Mama this time. Something else. "Da," she said. Unclear. Broken. But there. Elias's head whipped toward her. "Did she just—" "She did," Jasmine whispered. Nori was looking right at him. "Da," she said again. Louder this time. More certain. "Daddy." She was trying to say daddy. Elias set Arya and Lyanna down gently and crawled across the blanket to Nori. He was crying openly now. Didn't care who saw. "I'm here, baby girl. I'm right here." Nori lifted her arms. The universal sign for pick me up. He did. He lifted her into his arms, and she wrapped her small hands around his neck. Held on. Like she'd been waiting 3 years for this exact moment. "They're coming back," Elias said to Jasmine. His voice was thick with emotion. "They were never gone," Jasmine replied. They were just waiting for you to come back. The words hit him hard. True. Undeniable. He'd been the one who left. He'd been the one who chose absence over presence. These children had been here all along. Waiting, hoping, surviving. I don't know how to thank you, he said. Don't thank me. Just stay. That's all they need. You, present, here. Over the next few days, progress exploded. Arya took more steps. 2 at first, then 5, then 10. She fell constantly but got back up every time. Her determination was fierce. Liana mastered crawling and started pulling herself up on furniture. She wasn't walking yet, but she was close. So close. Nori began vocalizing more. Simple sounds. Da became Dada. Ma became Mama. She was building language, slowly, carefully, but undeniably. Elias started canceling meetings, rearranging his schedule, choosing the sunroom over the office, the garden over conference calls. His business partners in Manhattan noticed. His investors in Beverly Hills asked questions. He didn't care. For the first time in 3 years, he had something more important than money. He had his daughter's back. One morning, Jasmine found him sitting on the sunroom floor before sunrise, just watching the girls sleep on their mats. "You're here early?" she said softly. "I don't want to miss anything," he replied. "I've already missed too much." She sat beside him. "You know what's going to happen next, right?" He looked at her. "What?" "They're going to keep growing, keep learning, and eventually they won't need me anymore." His chest tightened. "You're leaving?" "Not yet. But someday. And when I do, you need to be ready to continue this without me." The thought terrified him. Jasmine had become the bridge between him and his daughters, the translator for a language he didn't speak. "I don't know if I can." "You can, because you're not the same man I met 2 weeks ago." "That man was hiding. You're not hiding anymore." Arya stirred on her mat. Her eyes opened and found Elias immediately. She smiled, a real, genuine smile, just for him. Then she sat up on her own, no help needed, and reached out her arms. Elias moved to her and pulled her close. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered something so soft he almost missed it. Dada. Clear. Perfect. His. 3 weeks after Jasmine arrived, Elias found a letter he didn't know existed. He was cleaning out his desk drawer, something he'd avoided for years, when his fingers brushed against an envelope tucked in the back corner. His name was written on the front in Celeste's handwriting. His hand started shaking before he even opened it. The date on the seal was from 4 years ago, before the girls were born, before everything fell apart. He sat down hard in his office chair and stared at the envelope for 10 full minutes before he found the courage to open it. Inside were 3 pages, front and back, filled with Celeste's neat cursive. The first line made his vision blur. "My love, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're drowning. I know you. I know how grief will eat you alive. But I need you to listen to me now, even though I'm not there to say these words out loud. Our daughters need you, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to reach them. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments if you believe the people we love can guide us even after they're gone." Elias's chest felt like it was caving in. He read the letter once, then again, then a third time. Celeste had known. Somehow she'd known the girls would struggle, known he would break. Known everything. And she'd left him a roadmap. "The doctors will tell you it's medical," she wrote. "They'll run tests and give diagnoses and make you feel hopeless. But Elias, our daughters aren't broken. They're scared. They came into a world where I died and you disappeared into your pain. They feel that. Children always feel what we try to hide. You need to show them it's safe to be here, safe to be alive, safe to need you. The letter went on, page after page of instructions, not medical advice, emotional guidance. Play music for them, not background noise, real music. Let them feel the vibrations, touch them, skin to skin, every single day. Don't be afraid of them. They can sense fear like animals sense storms. Take them outside. Let them feel grass and sun and wind. The world isn't sterile, and neither should their lives be. Talk to them about me. Don't hide my memory like it's a wound. I'm their mother. They have a right to know who I was. And most importantly, be present. Not perfect, just present. That's all they need. That's all any child needs. Elias folded the letter carefully and pressed it against his chest. Celeste had known. She'd given him everything he needed, and he'd ignored it. Locked it away in a drawer and chosen to drown instead. But Jasmine had done exactly what Celeste described. Music, touch, outside time, presence. She'd followed a blueprint she didn't even know existed, or maybe she did know. Maybe some people just understood what others needed spelled out. He stood and walked to the sunroom. Jasmine was there with the girls. Arya was taking steps between furniture pieces. Liana was standing while holding onto the couch. Nori was sitting on the floor, stacking blocks. Simple, normal, miraculous. I found something, Elias said. Jasmine looked up. He held out the letter. She took it and read in silence. When she finished, her eyes were wet. She loved you very much. She knew I'd fail them. No, she knew you'd struggle. There's a difference. And she gave you the tools to fix it. But I didn't use them. You did. Jasmine handed the letter back. Then maybe I was supposed to be here. Maybe she sent me. The thought made Elias's throat tight. Was that possible? Could Celeste have somehow orchestrated this from beyond? He didn't believe in that kind of thing. At least, he hadn't. But watching his daughters come alive after 3 years of silence, it was hard not to wonder if something bigger was at work. That night, Elias did something he hadn't done since Celeste died. He prayed, not in a church, not on his knees, just sitting in the nursery while the girls slept, hands folded, eyes closed. I don't know if you can hear me, he whispered. I don't know how any of this works. But if you're out there, Celeste, thank you. Thank you for the letter. Thank you for knowing me better than I know myself. Thank you for our daughters. I'm sorry I took so long to wake up. I'm sorry I let grief win. But I'm here now. I promise I'm here now. Arya stirred in her crib. Her eyes opened and found him in the dark. Dada? I'm here, sweetheart. He moved to her crib and picked her up. She wrapped her arms around his neck and held on tight. He carried her to the window. The moon was full, lighting up the garden below. You see that? He whispered. That's where your mama used to sit. She'd read out there for hours, said the garden made her feel close to something bigger than herself. Arya looked out the window. She didn't understand the words, but she felt the emotion behind them, felt her father's love for someone she'd never met. She wanted you so badly, he continued. All 3 of you. She knew having triplets was dangerous. The doctors warned her. But she said you were worth any risk. And she was right. You were worth everything. Arya's hand touched his face, the same exploring touch from weeks ago. But this time it felt different, like she was comforting him instead of just learning his features. I'm going to tell you about her every day, Elias promised. You'll know her through me, through the stories, through the love she left behind. He carried Arya back to her crib, but she wouldn't let go. She wanted to stay in his arms, so he settled into the rocking chair with her. And for the first time since Celeste died, he sang. His voice was rough, unpracticed, but the melody was there, a lullaby Celeste used to hum while she was pregnant. Arya's eyes grew heavy, but before she fell asleep, she whispered something that stopped his heart. "Mama." Not a question, a statement, like she understood, like somehow, in ways he couldn't explain, she knew exactly who he'd been talking about. Elias held her tighter and let himself cry. Not from grief this time, from gratitude, from relief, from the overwhelming realization that healing was possible, that second chances were real, that maybe, just maybe, Celeste was still with them after all, guiding them home. The next morning, he showed Jasmine something else he'd found with the letter. A photograph. Celeste, 8 months pregnant, sitting in the garden with her hands on her belly, smiling, glowing, alive. "I want to put this in the nursery," he said. "I want them to see her face." Jasmine smiled. She'd love that. He hung the photograph on the wall where the girls could see it from their cribs. And that night, when Nori woke up crying, she looked at the photo. Her cries stopped. She stared at Celeste's face, and she smiled, like she recognized her, like she'd been waiting to meet her too. 1 month after Jasmine arrived, Elias made a decision that shocked everyone. He sold the Manhattan penthouse, the place where he'd spent 3 years hiding from his life. The place where he'd made millions while his daughters sat frozen in Connecticut. His business partners thought he'd lost his mind. "You're walking away from New York?" they asked. "You built your empire there." But Elias didn't care about empires anymore. He cared about being home when Arya took her morning steps, being there when Lyanna said her first full sentence, being present when Nori finally decided she was ready to walk. The penthouse sold in 48 hours to a tech executive from Silicon Valley. Elias didn't even negotiate. He took the first offer and signed the papers. Then he sold the San Francisco property, the Malibu house, everything except the Greenwich estate, because this was where his daughters were learning to live, and he refused to miss another second. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments what you'd give up to be present for the people you love. Jasmine was in the garden with the girls when Elias told her. "You sold everything?" Her voice was stunned. "Not everything, just the distractions." "That's a lot of money to walk away from." "Money doesn't mean anything if I'm not here to see them grow up." He sat on the blanket next to Lyanna, who immediately climbed into his lap. She was walking now, wobbly but determined. She'd taken her first independent steps 3 days ago and hadn't stopped since. "Besides," he continued, "I can work from here. Video calls exist. I don't need to be in Manhattan to close deals." Arya walked over, holding onto furniture for balance, and collapsed next to him. She was getting stronger every day. Her legs were building muscle, her confidence growing. Nori was the only one still sitting, still watching, still waiting. But Elias had learned not to push her. She would move when she was ready, and he would be there when she did. "You've changed," Jasmine observed. "Is that a bad thing?" "No, it's the whole point." He looked at her. The letters Celeste wrote. She said presence was the only thing that mattered. I didn't understand it then. I thought providing was enough. Money, resources, the best doctors. But she was right. They don't need any of that. They just need me. Here. Now. Lyanna grabbed his face with both hands and turned his head toward her. "Dada, look." She pointed at a butterfly on a nearby flower. Her vocabulary was exploding, new words every day, simple ones, but each one felt like a miracle. I see it, baby. It's beautiful. Be full, Liana repeated, trying out the word, testing how it felt in her mouth. Arya crawled closer to see the butterfly too. Fly, she said. Her speech was slower than Liana's, but just as determined. Elias pulled both girls close. You know what? Let's go somewhere. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Where? I don't know. Somewhere they've never been. Somewhere normal. An hour later, they were at a park in Stamford. Not a private estate, not a controlled environment. A regular public park with regular families and regular kids. Elias carried Arya. Jasmine carried Nori. Liana walked between them, holding both their hands. Other parents stared. 3 adults with 3 small children drew attention. But Elias didn't care. He set Arya down on the grass near a playground. She looked around with wide eyes. So many people. So much noise. So much life. For a moment, he worried it would be too much, that she'd shut down like she used to. But instead, she smiled. She watched other kids running and laughing, and she tried to run too. She made it 4 steps before falling. But she got right back up. Liana was braver. She walked straight to the playground equipment and tried to climb. She couldn't quite manage it yet. Her coordination wasn't there, but she tried, over and over, falling and getting back up. No tears, just determination. Jasmine set Nori down on a bench. The little girl watched everything. Her eyes tracked the other children, the swings, the slides, the chaos of normal childhood. You want to try? Jasmine asked gently. Nori shook her head, but she didn't look scared, just cautious, considering. A little girl, maybe 4 years old, ran up to them. Why doesn't she play? The girl asked, pointing at Nori. She's just watching right now, Elias explained. Is she sick? No, she's just learning how. The little girl studied Nori for a moment. Then she held out a dandelion she'd been holding. Here, you can have this. Nori looked at the flower, then at the girl. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took it. The little girl beamed and ran off. Nori stared at the dandelion in her hand. Then she brought it to her nose and smelled it. Her face lit up. Flower, she whispered, her first real word that wasn't mama or dada. Elias's eyes filled with tears. Again. He was crying all the time now. Happy tears, grateful tears, but still tears. Jasmine squeezed his shoulder. You see? This is what they needed. Not isolation, connection. Over the next 2 weeks, they went out more. Coffee shops, bookstores. Regular places where regular people lived regular lives. The girls thrived on it. They watched other children and learned. Mimicked. Grew. Arya started running. Really running. Her legs pumping. Her face serious with concentration. She fell constantly, but never stayed down. Liana learned to climb. First, small things, then bigger. Her upper body strength was developing, her confidence soaring. And Nori. Sweet, cautious Nori. She started standing, not walking yet, but standing, holding onto furniture, testing her weight, preparing. One afternoon, back in the garden, something shifted. Elias was sitting on the blanket with Arya and Liana. Nori was a few feet away, standing while holding the edge of a chair. She looked at her father, then at the distance between them, 5 feet, maybe 6. She let go of the chair. Elias's breath caught. Nori? She took a step, then another. Her movements were shaky but deliberate. She was walking, actually walking, to him. Come on, baby girl, you can do it. 3 more steps. 4. Her face was fierce with concentration. 5. 6. She reached him and fell into his arms. He caught her and held her tight. You did it. You walked. Nori's face broke into the biggest smile he'd ever seen from her. She looked at Jasmine, at her sisters, back at her father. And she said, clear as day, I did it. Complete sentences, walking, confidence. In 4 weeks, his daughters had gone from frozen to flying. And Elias had gone from ghost to father. He looked at Jasmine across the blanket. Thank you doesn't feel like enough. You don't need to thank me. You did this. You showed up. That's all they ever needed. But Elias knew the truth. Without Jasmine, he'd still be hiding in Manhattan. Without her, his daughters would still be sitting in silence. She'd been the catalyst, the miracle, the answer to prayers he'd been too broken to say. And now, watching all 3 girls moving, playing, speaking, living, he understood what Celeste's letter had really meant. Presence wasn't just showing up. It was choosing to stay even when grief made leaving easier. It was fighting for connection when isolation felt safer. It was believing in life when death had taken everything. 6 weeks after Jasmine arrived, Elias found the box. He was in the attic looking for old photo albums to show the girls, when he saw it tucked behind some storage bins, a wooden box he didn't recognize. His name was carved into the lid in Celeste's handwriting. His heart started racing. He pulled it out, sat on the dusty floor, and opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, each one dated, each one addressed to him or the girls, and a note on top that made his hands shake. Open these when they start to wake up. You'll know when the time is right. Follow what I've written. Every word, every instruction. This is how you bring them back. I love you. Always. Celeste. He opened the first letter with trembling fingers. The date was marked for 3 months after the girls were born. Instructions for music therapy. Specific songs, specific times of day. Detailed guidance on touch, on presence, on patience. Everything Jasmine had done. Everything that had worked. Celeste had mapped it all out years ago. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments if you believe love can reach across impossible distances. Elias couldn't breathe. The letters weren't just advice. They were a complete program. Week-by-week instructions on how to reach children trapped in trauma. How had Celeste known? How had she predicted everything? He opened another letter. This one was marked for 6 weeks in. By now, they should be moving, maybe even speaking. If they are, don't stop. Keep pushing. Keep showing up. The hardest part is coming. They'll have setbacks. Days where progress reverses. Don't panic. Don't give up. Regression is part of healing. Stay the course. Stay present. I believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Elias's vision blurred. She'd known he would doubt. Known he would struggle. Known everything. He read through letter after letter. Instructions for months he hadn't reached yet. Guidance for challenges he hadn't faced. And at the bottom of the box, a sealed envelope marked, "When they ask about me." He held that one but didn't open it. Not yet. They weren't asking yet. But they would. And when they did, Celeste would tell him exactly what to say. He carried the box downstairs and found Jasmine in the kitchen. The girls were napping. He set the box on the counter. She left a whole plan. Everything you've been doing. She wrote it all down before they were even born. Jasmine opened the box and carefully read through several letters. Her expression shifted from curiosity to awe. This is incredible. She understood child development better than most therapists. How did she know? Maybe she researched. Maybe she talked to specialists while she was pregnant. Or maybe she just knew. Some mothers have that instinct. Elias leaned against the counter. You've been following her plan without even knowing it. Or maybe there's only one way to truly help a child heal. Through love, through presence, through believing in them when they can't believe in themselves. He looked at the letters spread across the counter. What if I'd found these sooner? What if I'd followed her instructions from the beginning? You can't think like that. You weren't ready. Sometimes we need to hit bottom before we can climb back up. 3 years, Jasmine. I stole 3 years from them. Stop. You're not that man anymore. The man I met 6 weeks ago was hiding. The man standing in front of me now is a father. That's what matters. That evening, Elias started reading the letters to the girls. Not the instructions, the personal ones. Letters Celeste had written directly to Aria, Liana, and Nori. My sweet Aria, he read, holding the letter so she could see her mother's handwriting even though she couldn't read yet. You're going to be strong. I can feel it. You're going to be the one who leads your sisters into bravery. Don't be afraid of the world. It needs your light. Aria sat in his lap, touching the paper gently, like she could feel her mother through the words. My darling Liana, he continued with the next letter. You're going to be curious. You're going to want to explore everything. Let yourself. Don't let fear hold you back. Climb high. Ask questions. Learn everything you can. Liana climbed up beside him, trying to see the words. Mama? She asked. Yes, baby. This is from Mama. She wrote these for you before you were born. She loved us? The question broke him. More than anything in the world. My precious Nori. He read the last letter. You're going to be thoughtful. You're going to watch and learn before you leap. That's okay. Take your time. The world will wait for you. And when you're ready, you're going to fly. Nori climbed into his lap too. All 3 girls pressed against him, listening. Fly, Nori repeated. That's right. You're going to do amazing things. He kept reading, letter after letter. Celeste's voice coming through the words, her love, her hopes, her dreams for these children she'd never get to raise. By the time he finished, all 3 girls were crying. Not sad crying. Something else. Like they were grieving someone they'd never met but somehow knew. Elias held them and let them feel it. Let them process. Jasmine watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, she found Elias in his office. He was reading through more letters, planning ahead. You know what this means, right? She said. He looked up. What? She gave you everything you need to finish this without me. His chest tightened. You're leaving? Not yet, but soon. They're doing so well, Elias. They don't need me anymore. They need you. And you're ready. I'm not ready. I don't know how to do this alone. You're not alone. You have her guidance. You have your daughters. And you have yourself. You're not the broken man I met. You're whole now. He wanted to argue, wanted to beg her to stay. But he knew she was right. The girls needed their father now. Not a miracle worker. Just a dad who showed up, who stayed, who loved them through the hard days and the good ones. When? He asked. When the time is right. We'll know. She handed him another letter from the box. This one was marked. When you're scared to do this alone. He opened it. My love, Celeste had written. By now, you're terrified. I know you. You're thinking you can't do this, that you're not enough. But you are. You always have been. Our daughters don't need perfect. They need present. They need you. Messy, struggling, human. That's enough. That's everything. Trust yourself the way I trust you. Love them the way you loved me. And when it gets hard, remember this. I'm not really gone. I'm in their smiles, their laughter, their strength. Every time you look at them, you're looking at me. We're still together. We always will be. Elias folded the letter carefully and pressed it to his chest. Then he walked to the nursery and watched his daughters sleep. 3 miracles breathing softly in the dark. And for the first time since Celeste died, he didn't feel alone. She was here, in every breakthrough, every smile, every moment of progress, guiding him home. 8 weeks after Jasmine arrived, everything fell apart. Arya woke up one morning and wouldn't move. She just lay in her crib staring at the ceiling like she had 3 years ago. Elias picked her up and she went limp in his arms. No resistance, no response, just empty. Arya, sweetheart, what's wrong? Nothing. Her eyes were open but distant, like someone had flipped a switch and turned her off. Panic seized his chest. He carried her to the sunroom where Jasmine was with Liana and Nori. Something's wrong. She's not responding. Jasmine took one look and her face went pale. It's a regression. Celeste warned you this would happen. What do we do? His voice was shaking. We keep going. We don't stop. This is the test. But Elias felt like the ground was disappearing beneath him. After 8 weeks of miracles, his daughter was slipping back into the darkness. And he didn't know if he was strong enough to pull her out again. But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments about a time when progress felt like it was disappearing and you had to fight to hold on. Liana walked over to her sister and touched her face. Arya? Play? Arya didn't respond, didn't even blink. Liana looked at her father with confused, worried eyes. Dada, Arya sick? She's not sick, baby. She's just having a hard day. But it was more than a hard day. By afternoon, Liana started regressing too. Her words became fewer. Her movements slower. She sat on the floor and stared at her hands like she'd forgotten what they were for. Only Nori seemed unaffected. She walked around her sisters, touching them, trying to get them to respond. Arya, Liana, wake up. But they didn't wake up. They were disappearing right in front of him. Elias pulled out Celeste's letters frantically, searching for the one about regression. He found it. His hands shook as he read. When they regress, and they will, don't panic. This is their brain's way of processing trauma. They're not going backward. They're integrating everything they've learned. It's overwhelming. Give them space, but don't give up. Keep doing what's been working. Music, touch, presence. They'll come back. I promise they'll come back. But you have to believe it, even when it looks impossible. He read it 3 times. Then he carried the letter to Jasmine. She says they'll come back. They will. But this part is hard. This is where most people give up. I'm not giving up. Good. Because they need you to be stronger now than you've ever been. He sat on the floor with Arya in his lap. She was completely limp. He started humming the lullaby Celeste used to sing, the one he'd sung to Arya that night weeks ago. Nothing. He kept humming, kept holding her, kept believing. An hour passed. 2. His voice grew hoarse. His arms ached, but he didn't stop. Jasmine worked with Liana, playing the keyboard, trying to spark any response. Nori sat between them, watching, confused, scared. Why they sleep? Nori asked. They're not sleeping, sweet girl. They're just resting their brains. When they wake, Soon. We hope soon. Night came. Neither Arya nor Lyanna had improved. Elias refused to put them in their cribs. He held Arya. Jasmine held Lyanna. They sat in the nursery through the dark hours, just holding them, keeping them connected to the world, reminding them they weren't alone. What if they don't come back? Elias whispered. They will. How do you know? Because they've tasted life now. They've felt joy. People don't go back to darkness willingly once they've seen light. He wanted to believe her, but fear was crushing him. 3 years of silence, 8 weeks of miracles, and now this. Was it all for nothing? Morning came. Still no change. Elias was exhausted, emotionally shattered. He laid Arya down on the sunroom mat and collapsed beside her. He couldn't do this, couldn't watch them disappear again. It hurt too much. Nori walked over and lay down next to Arya. She put her small hand on her sister's chest. Arya, I hear, come back. Arya's eyes flickered, just barely, but they flickered. Elias sat up. Did you see that? Jasmine nodded. Keep talking, Nori. Nori leaned closer to Arya's face. We play. You, me, Lyanna, Dada, Jasmine. We play in garden. You like garden? Come back. Play with me. Arya's hand twitched. Nori grabbed it. Yes, you hear me? Come back. And slowly, impossibly, Arya's fingers closed around Nori's hand. She squeezed, weak, but deliberate. That's it. Elias moved closer. Come on, sweetheart. Come back to us. Arya's eyes focused. She looked at Nori, then at Elias, and she whispered, Dada. He pulled her into his arms and sobbed. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Arya wrapped her arms around his neck. She was back, tired, fragile, but back. They turned their attention to Lyanna. She was still unresponsive. Jasmine had been holding her all night. Lyanna, your sister came back. You can too. But Lyanna didn't move. Arya wiggled out of Elias's arms and crawled to Lyanna. She put her face close to her sister's. Lyanna, my sissy, come play. Nothing. Arya looked at Nori. The two of them seemed to communicate without words. Then together, they started singing. Not real words, just sounds. The melody Jasmine had played for them. The same pattern. Do, re, mi. They sang it over and over. And slowly, Lyanna's eyes began to focus. She looked at her sisters, at Jasmine, at her father. Dada. Her voice was so small, so unsure. I'm here, baby girl. She reached for him. He pulled her close. Both his daughters back from the edge. Both fighting their way home. The rest of the day was fragile. The girls were quiet, moved less, spoke less. But they were present. They were here. That night, Elias read from Celeste's letters again, the next one in the sequence. After the first regression, they'll be different. More cautious, that's okay. They're learning that growth is scary, that change is hard. Be patient. Keep showing up. The setbacks will become less frequent, less severe. Each time they come back, they'll be stronger. Trust the process. Trust them. Trust yourself. He looked at his daughters sleeping peacefully in their cribs. They'd fought so hard today. Fought to stay connected. Fought to come back. And they'd won. Over the next week, they rebuilt. Slower this time. More carefully. But they rebuilt. Arya walked again. Lyanna talked again. Nori continued being the steady one, the bridge between her sisters and the world. And Elias learned something crucial. Love wasn't about preventing pain. It was about being present through it. Holding on when letting go felt easier. Believing when doubt was screaming. That was real love. That was real strength. And for the first time, he understood what Celeste had been trying to teach him all along. 3 months after Jasmine arrived, she told Elias she was leaving. They were in the garden watching the girls play. Real play, running, laughing, fighting over toys like normal siblings. Arya was chasing Liana around a tree. Nori was building something with blocks. The scene was so ordinary, it was extraordinary. "They don't need me anymore," Jasmine said quietly. Elias had known this was coming, had been dreading it for weeks. But hearing the words out loud still felt like a punch to the chest. "When?" His voice was steady, but his hands shook. "End of the week. I already booked my flight back to Brooklyn." He wanted to beg her to stay, offer her more money, anything to keep her here. But he knew that wasn't fair. She'd done what she came to do. She'd woken his daughters up, taught him how to be their father, given him back his life. "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done." "You don't need to thank me. Just keep showing up. That's all they need." But before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments about someone who changed your life and how you honored their impact. The next few days were bittersweet. Jasmine spent extra time with each girl, teaching Elias the routines, the signals, the small things that mattered. Arya gets overwhelmed when there's too much noise. She'll shut down. When that happens, take her somewhere quiet. Just sit with her. She'll come back on her own. He wrote everything down, afraid he'd forget, afraid he'd mess up without her guidance. Liana needs constant stimulation. If she gets bored, she acts out. Keep her busy, give her puzzles. Let her explore. She's the adventurous one. And Nori? Nori is your steady one. She watches everything, processes everything. Don't mistake her quiet for weakness. She's the strongest of the three. She holds them all together. On Jasmine's last day, the girls sensed something was wrong. They clung to her all morning, wouldn't let her out of their sight. "Why you sad?" Liana asked. Jasmine knelt down to their level. "I'm not sad. I'm happy. So happy. But I have to go home now." "You live here," Arya said. Simple, final, like it was obvious. "I live in a different place, far away. But I'll always remember you, all three of you." "No go," Nori said firmly. Her face was serious, almost angry. "I have to, sweetheart. But your daddy is here. He's going to take care of you. He's going to be amazing." "We want you stay," all three girls said in unison. It was the first time they'd spoken together. The first time they'd been united in one clear thought. Jasmine looked at Elias. Her eyes were wet. His were too. "I can't stay forever. But you three are going to do incredible things. You're going to grow up strong and brave and kind. And someday, you'll understand why I had to go." She hugged each girl, long, tight, memorizing them. Then she stood and picked up her small satchel. The same one she'd arrived with 3 months ago. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. Elias walked her to the door. "I meant what I said. I don't know how to thank you. You already have. You showed up. You stayed. You fought for them. That's all I ever wanted." She paused at the door and turned back. "One more thing. The letter in the box, the one marked when they ask about me. Open it soon. They're ready." Then she was gone. The house felt emptier immediately. The girls cried, real tears, real grief. They'd lost someone they loved. Elias held them and let them feel it. Didn't try to fix it or rush them through it. Just sat on the floor with all three in his arms and let them be sad. "It's okay to miss her," he said. "She was special. She helped us when we needed it most. Why she leave? Liana asked between sobs. Because sometimes people come into our lives for a season, to teach us something, to help us grow, and then they move on so we can keep growing without them. I don't want grow without her, Arya said. I know, baby. But we have to. That's how life works. That night, he opened the letter Jasmine had mentioned, the one from Celeste marked, "When they ask about me." His hands shook as he unfolded it. My love, it began. By now, our daughters are asking questions. About me, about what happened, about why I'm not there. This is the hardest conversation you'll ever have. But you can do it. Tell them the truth. Not all of it. Not the medical details. But the truth that matters. Tell them I love them more than my own life. Tell them I chose them. Tell them that love is stronger than death. That I'm still with them in every moment of joy. Every success, every time they feel brave or strong or loved, that's me. Still loving them, still cheering them on, still believing in them, and tell them about you. Tell them how you fell apart and then put yourself back together. How you learned to be their father even when it was hard. How you chose presence over perfection. They need to know that story. Because someday, they'll fall apart too. And they'll need to remember that breaking doesn't mean ending. That healing is possible. That love wins. Always. Elias folded the letter and walked to the nursery. The girls were still awake, waiting, like they knew something important was about to happen. He sat on the floor between their cribs. Your mama wrote you a letter. Do you want me to read it? 3 heads nodded. He read Celeste's words, her love, her truth, her hope. When he finished, Arya said, Mama loved us more than anything. Do you love us? Liana asked. The question pierced him. With everything I have. I'm sorry it took me so long to show you. You show now, Nori said simply. Like that was enough. Like all was forgiven. They talked for hours. About Celeste, about Jasmine, about the journey they'd been on. The girls asked questions. He answered honestly. And somewhere in that conversation, something shifted. They weren't just his children anymore. They were people. Small, young, but real people with thoughts and feelings and voices. And he was their father. Not perfect. Still learning, still grieving. But present. Finally, truly present. Weeks passed. Then months. The girls continued to grow. Started preschool, made friends, had tantrums and triumphs and everything in between. Normal. Beautiful, messy, real. One morning, a year after Jasmine left, Elias found all 3 girls standing in front of Celeste's photograph in the nursery. Mama, Nori said, touching the glass. We doing good? We walking? We talking? We living? Arya added, Dada helps us, like you said. Liana finished. We miss you, but we okay. Elias watched from the doorway, tears streaming down his face. They were okay. They were more than okay. They were thriving. And so was he. That afternoon in the garden, the same place where Jasmine had first helped them move, all 3 girls ran freely, racing each other, laughing, falling, and getting back up. Living. Elias sat on the grass, watching them. And he whispered to the wind, to Celeste, to whatever force had brought Jasmine into their lives. Thank you for not giving up on us. For showing me the way back. For reminding me that miracles aren't about fixing what's broken. They're about learning to live with the broken pieces, to find beauty in the cracks, to choose hope when despair feels easier. The sun set over the Greenwich estate, casting golden light across the garden. And in that light, Elias saw everything he'd almost lost, everything he'd fought to keep, everything that mattered. His daughters, alive, whole, his and himself. No longer a ghost, no longer drowning, just a father. Imperfect, present, enough. The story could have ended in tragedy, in silence, in loss. But instead, it ended here, in laughter, in movement, in life. Because sometimes, when we're brave enough to face our pain, when we're willing to show up even when it's hard, when we choose presence over perfection, miracles happen. Not the kind that erase the past, but the kind that redeem it, the kind that prove love is stronger than death. Hope is stronger than despair, and healing is always possible. Always. If you've watched this far, thank you. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that second chances are real, that breaking doesn't mean ending, that even in our darkest moments, light is waiting. Comment below where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. And remember, you are not alone. You are not broken beyond repair. And your story isn't over, not even close.